Yeah, y'all got to bench Elon, man. Y'all gonna have to bench Elon. Elon is not going to be long for this world as a major American political figure. I watched his interview with Fox. He said during the interview, he said, "I don't know why I have to do this." He's annoyed at the perch that he is on right now and the way he's being perceived. He's opened himself up to a level of scrutiny that I don't think that he's going to be able to bear. I don't think so.
Well, his companies are certainly having a hard time.
Well, listen, I don't think we're going to have to pass the hat for Elon Musk. The guy's worth $300 billion. Do the math. If he put his money in tax-free government bonds, he would get $15 billion a year without touching the principal. So these setbacks that people are so concerned about, I wouldn't worry about it. I think it's patriotic what he's doing. I think that he's a disruptor. I think he is looking for fraud, corruption, and waste. And you know what? If we find fraud, corruption, and waste, and we end it, then we have more money for hospitals. We have more money for education. We have more money for infrastructure. Is that a bad thing?
I'll tell you what
is
is
that
not.
a bad
Let
thing?
me tell you what is
actually doing that, but there's
not
not
bad?
a lot of
I'll
evidence.
tell you what is bad and what is not patriotic is calling Mark Kelly a traitor. He called him a traitor today for having gone and visited Ukraine, which many Republicans and Democrats in Congress and in the Senate have done in the last several years. Mark Kelly is a naval aviator. He flew missions in the Gulf War. He has logged over 5,000 hours flying for the Navy. He then went on to be the pilot for the space shuttle. He serves in Congress. Elon Musk has absolutely no right, who has never served this country, who serves a president who made up a story about bone spurs so he could avoid the draft, has absolutely no right to call Mark Kelly, who is a patriot, who has served this country to the point of risking his life, and calling him a traitor. That is something we should all condemn.
I don't like that kind of language from either side, and it's gotten out of hand. I think that the discourse now.
I've had to do this a lot of times on the show, but like, I guess it's very easy to say either side to every single thing, but in response to what she said, what do you say about what Elon has to say?
Well, first of all, I would never denigrate somebody who served our country and call them a traitor unless I had material evidence that they were actually a traitor. So I think that Elon Musk is not a politician. He's not somebody that is what we would say politically astute, but I think he serves a great purpose in uncovering fraud, corruption, and waste. And I think it's a patriotic act on his part.
Look, I spent 5 years in City Hall working on government efficiency projects. And here's my advice for Elon. It's one thing to talk about efficiency, but what people actually care about, as you know, sir, as a local official, they care about efficacy. So if you look on the DOGE board, it just shows how much they're cutting from the federal government. How about a board that shows how long passport times are taking, that shows how quickly people in the Veterans Affairs are getting their benefits? That's what people actually care about. And if he does that board and shows that he's making progress on that, that's showing that government is actually working for people. I think everyone here can get behind that.
Scott?
I think
Confluence is the connected workspace where teams can do it all. Like project managers orchestrating plans their whole organization will follow, as if they're managing the future, magically connecting the right people.
On the entitlement issue, which you played, the president is in charge. He has made it perfectly clear he is not touching Social Security, Medicare, and even Medicaid, other than to say if there is fraud in any program, he'd like to root out the fraud. That's period. He's the president. The buck stops with the president. He's been clear about that since he started running in 2015.
I mean, Republicans are getting ready to cut a lot from Medicare.
Well, you call it cuts. They're calling it could be slowing the growth of the program or rooting out fraud, but that's different than
I mean,
cuts.
well, here's the reason I have a lot.
$880 million worth of fraud.
Yeah, and I have a lot of reason to doubt what you're saying because
let me tell you something. There's a huge able-bodied population in this country that should not be on welfare. That is a true story.
Okay, first of all,
well, that's
welfare,
actually not true.
Hold on a second. Welfare is not the biggest driver of this, actually. But what I'm saying is that DOGE has put all this money on the board, and they've said, "Oh, this is waste, fraud, and abuse." And when you really look at it, they're just programs that that Elon and the president and random 20-something-year-olds don't like. So when you say fraud and abuse, There's not a lot of
Waste.
evidence.
The first word is usually waste,
yeah.
and they consider it to be waste.
Do you think
But
contract? Do you think
decides
contract?
what's
they are
waste?
not actually doing that. When Congress authorizes money for a program or a program is duly authorized, that's not waste, fraud, and abuse.
No,
That's
no.
just something you don't like.
Abby, everybody wants to find waste, fraud, and abuse until somebody actually
Do you
does
think
it.
people-
This
No,
is the,
it's
this is
been
the
done.
problem. This
No,
is the
no,
problem.
no, no,
They're actually
no,
saying,
wait,
okay,
wait,
maybe
hold
this is wasteful.
No, hold on for a second.
And then Washington
Well,
goes crazy.
That's untrue. It's been done. The Clinton administration was able
Okay.
to put together an
30-something years ago.
right. But the point of it
Y'all
is
keep
the
saying
way
that
that
it's
they
never happened, and it
it's
definitely
been done.
happened in
But
a
the way that they went
bipartisan
about it
Let me
was
ask you a
to
question.
study it for
Why-
6 months and then to
Why do you-
take a longer time to
I know.
understand which government jobs
and-
needed to be rooted. Rooted out. He fired a bunch
I
of
know.
people. He ended with a budget. It's been done. It's just the way that you guys are doing it.
I know.
is
And the way that
absurd.
we're doing it is that you don't want us to do it. In 2019, we spent 4.4 trillion as a government. Last year, we spent 6.2 trillion. The government's gotten more expensive and much larger over the last 5 years. The only question Republicans have is, does it have to be this large and does it have to be this expensive?
was-
That's the question.
what
And
was-
Elon's finally trying to cut into it.
Okay,
And the
well,
Republicans in Congress need to help.
Well, you
him.
guys should start it in your own house because your president drove up the deficit as much as anybody ever has, maybe more than anyone.
And why?
So,
what happened at the end of Trump?
So then,
Any memory of it?
I do
Even
remember.
before the
Even
recession,
before
that
then,
was
though.
true.
Even before that, though.
COVID.
Everybody's got Google. So the reality of it is this: if no one that I know is against finding waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. However, the way that you go about doing it, you don't play with Americans' lives, you don't play with their jobs, you don't do things haphazardly where you have to fire people. Then
Can you
bring
name
people
one
back.
thing you'd do differently?
One thing
like
do
what
differently?
you say
Oh,
you're
so
for
now
waste,
you're
fraud? No,
gonna
I'm
make
just
me in
asking.
charge of those.
No, I'm asking.
Okay.
You say you're against waste, fraud, and abuse. What would you consider the government to do that's wasteful today?
Okay, well then what I would do if I was looking for waste, fraud, and abuse is I would start in the Defense Department and at the Pentagon. I would start with the defense industrial complex of America and I would look there.
I think
for all
Elon
of
and you
the
were in
people-
agreement on that.
Well, he hasn't.
They
So
are.
the question is, when are they going to get around to it?
Trump
Because they're
president
starting
already
off
told
with
them to do
firing
it.
I don't-
park
But Scott,
rangers.
but hold on. One of the other
They already
things,
started looking at the
you
Pentagon.
started your
Mhm.
comment by saying the president's in charge. He's not going to touch Social Security, and Medicare, and Medicaid. Medicaid. That's where all the money is,
It's
Scott,
true.
which is why
We're fighting
Elon-
over
Well,
28%.
no, wait, he said
Okay.
he was, no, he said he
Okay.
wasn't going to cut entitlements.
No.
They
I'm
are going to
telling
look
you.
for fraud in Medicaid.
Bruce,
They are going to look for
I'm telling
fraud
you
in
what
Medicare.
Scott said. Scott
Okay.
said that he wasn't going to touch it. Elon said correctly, that's where all the money is. So if you guys actually want to produce savings, you are going to have to touch it.
Actually, we
We-
started
and-
this,
and-
They will not
we
cut
started this
benefits. They will not
segment.
cut
What
benefits.
point
Wait, we started this segment
is that
talking
be
about the
told to
fact
American
that the president's closest aide, the guy who's attached at the hip to him, Elon Musk, called an American hero a traitor today.
Okay, but you said that already.
No, because you haven't
What is
condemned
that?
it.
What does that got to do?
Because that's
with-
what this segment
what
was
is that-
about,
what
actually,
is
and you
that-
haven't
what
condemned
does
it.
that got to
Instead,
do?
Let's
with
talk
this?
about what this
because
is
you want to
actually
talk
doing.
Hold on
about
a second.
something else
And
instead of
he
condemning
did-
what is
I
condemnable.
will say that Bruce did, well, maybe I shouldn't go so far as to say condemn, but you said that you do not condone
like it.
that kind of
Bruce
language.
basically said chill.
So
like it.
he did say that,
But-
but
Let's- let's talk what this is actually doing. I think the people who are paid to ID bodies of people killed in action who can't work right now are not waste, fraud, and abuse. I think that these kind of things that we're seeing, the people who oversee our nuclear stockpile are not waste, fraud, and abuse. These mistakes can't happen. It's too critical to our
The
country.
veterans who we promised we would protect.
We'll never,
when they
we
came
will
back.
never, we will never spend, unless some administration has the guts to see this through, we will never, ever spend less. We
Scott,
will never have a smaller
I
government.
take your
Everything
point.
has a
I take
constituency
your
in
point
Washington.
about finding the spending that you want to cut, but I think there's no question, even Republicans agree, and we talked about this last last week, this has been done in a haphazard way to the point where the president himself had to hear it from his cabinet secretaries who were asking, what's happening at the VA? Why are you cutting all these people? The transportation secretary said they were trying to cut air traffic controllers.
I hope the cabinet, I hope
so
the cabinet and Elon
they had to speak up
work
because
well together. The
it
cabinet
wasn't
just
being
got
done
there.
well.
But ultimately, this is not a conversation that can be put off forever. And I feel like this is what Washington does. They try to just push it back as far as they can, and then we'll get the next guy in, and maybe it won't happen. That's how you go from $4.5 trillion to
But
$6.2
Scott,
trillion.
even
in 5 years.
Republicans
go.
have begun saying that it needs to be a scalpel, not a sledgehammer.
Yes,
and it has been a
and as-
sledgehammer.
No plan, no strategy, no message. That's a quote. That's how a Democratic lawmaker was describing the Democratic Senate vote with Republicans this weekend to fund the government with a Republican funding bill, averting a government shutdown. But there was virtually no fight and nothing achieved for Democratic priorities. This comes as our brand new CNN poll this morning shows that the Democratic Party's favorability is at an all-time low in this CNN poll. It's just 29% approval. That's a 20-point drop since 2021. Joining us now is a Congresswoman from Texas, Jasmine Crockett. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you squeezing us in before you go to church. This has been a rough 72 hours for Democrats. I want to play some of what Democratic Senate Leader Schumer told me on The Lead on Friday about his decision to vote with the Republicans to fund the government. Take a listen.
A government shutdown gives Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Doge almost complete power as to what to close down, because they can decide what is an essential service. If they determine that SNAP, kids shouldn't get food, is not essential, they can just cut it out summarily. They could fire half the workers in the federal government. It would have been a far worse consequence.
So he's saying that the path that House Democrats wanted would have presented a worse consequence. Is he wrong?
He's absolutely wrong. I mean, look at the reality of the votes, right? I understand that the American people are frustrated. Please believe many of us did not sleep because we were calling and trying to impress upon the senators the importance of pushing back in this moment. And as you saw, we had all but one Democrat in the House that voted for this. So that's 212 Democrats in the House. And then you had the vast majority of senators vote for it or vote against it as well. And so the idea that Chuck Schumer is the only one that's got a brain in the room and the only one that can think through all of the pros and cons is absolutely ridiculous. And Jake, you and I both know that this administration could care less about whether or not they violate the law. We know that we've had to rely heavily upon the courts. And I want to say, as you're talking about the polling on my party, I want to say that it is the Democratic attorney generals and some governors that are standing up against this administration and bringing those lawsuits and winning every single time. They are losing in court. Could we do a better job of making sure that sure that the American people know that we are winning in the courts? We probably could. But at the end of the day, it's still Democrats that are winning for the American people.
Some progressive groups are calling for new leadership in the Senate for Democrats. Even House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, your leader, he was asked if he supports Schumer as leader of the Senate Democrats, and he said, next question. Do you think Senate Democrats should replace Chuck Schumer?
I think Senate Democrats have to sit down and take a look and decide whether or not Chuck Schumer is the one to lead in this moment.
You're close with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Some of your fellow House Democrats say, and not just progressives, by the way, we've heard that moderates have said this too, that they're ready to support her to challenge Chuck Schumer in a Democratic primary. Would you get behind that?
That's 4 years from now. If you were asking me at least in 2 years, then I would have an absolute answer. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are watching his leadership in this moment. This is the moment. We don't even know what elections will look like in 4 years if we will have elections. And so I definitely think that younger, fresher, leadership may be something that many of us, not just depending on what part of the spectrum you're on, but many Americans may be looking for, especially in the state of New York.
How to take on the Republicans is a big topic of discussion among Democrats. Last week, you were one of those who participated in a Choose Your Fighter video. It got some criticism online, including Democratic Senator John Fetterman called it bizarre and reportedly mocked it in the Senate hallway. I will say that your punching look better than some of your colleagues. Fetterman has been criticizing your party for undignified antics and a sad cavalcade of cell phones during the president's address to Congress. What's your response to Senator Fetterman?
He's not the one to talk about anything. I mean, this is a guy that doesn't seemingly want to own a suit. I'm not really sure, but I don't show up in hoodies when I'm going on the floor. And so the idea that you would say that we could not have a moment in which an influencer asked us to do this. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you and tell you that when she asked me to jump, I said, did you ask my older colleagues to do this? Because I feel like you're picking on me because you think that my knees are a little younger. And I did not know who all was in this particular trend whatsoever. And I think that it is important that people see that we're real people. And even if that means that there's a moment to laugh, that's okay. Especially since it seems like we're doing more crying than anything. But just know that we were not on the House floor jumping around. At all, whereas Senator Fetterman is consistently walking around the Senate chamber, and he is walking around in such a way that they literally had to change the rules in the Senate so that he could walk around that way. So I just don't think that he's necessarily the one to actually have an opinion about this.
Let me ask you about the big news of this morning. President Trump seeking to use the Alien Enemies Act, a wartime authority, a law signed by John Adams in 1798. To deport undocumented Venezuelans that the administration say are dangerous individuals with ties to the gang Tren de Aragua. That gang is obviously associated with a lot of crime, human trafficking, drug dealing, theft, shootings, including in your state of Texas, right outside of your congressional district. Do you agree with this? And if not, what's your issue with the U.S. using any tool at its disposal to remove undocumented violent people from this country?
Well, my argument is that we already have tools that are available to remove undocumented violent people from our country. And so the idea that you that you want to go into a zombie law. This is kind of like what we saw in Arizona when they decided to revive a zombie law around abortion. It is the fact that we can't trust this administration to actually use a scalpel, but instead they love to use a butcher knife on things. And so giving them this wide latitude to just kind of go across and just claim that anybody is anything is wrong. And so we do have courts, we do have processes, we do have laws, and we should just go ahead and use those. There's a reason that nobody else has decided to go back until into Adam's times in order to try to find ways to make sure that we can keep our country safe.
All right, Congresswoman. Jasmine Crockett, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
I thought this polling was interesting. This is whether Democrats should work with the GOP or stop the Republican agenda. But what I want you to look at here is how this has changed. And back in 2017, 74% of Democrats said they should work with the GOP. Now, 57% say they should stop the Republican agenda. There has been a complete shift in the mindset of the Democratic Party. They want resistance.
They
want a Tea Party.
100%. And what you just said, we should listen to the people. You said as a congressman, am I correct in saying that you just said we should listen? Listen to the people. Why aren't they listening to the people? There's no leadership. There's nobody doing anything. And what we saw, honestly, was a cave. Yet again, another example with Schumer saying, I don't want the smoke. And we're asking, I mean, they are begging. She just showed the dramatic shift. I don't understand what the problem is. Why is there nobody, for lack of a better word, with some cojones to stand up and say, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Well,
if
look,
you know we need it, and I'm not trying to give you the smoke, but if you know we need it, why is it not happening?
look, we need to throw a punch. That's correct. And the American people want us to throw a punch.
By the way,
And we need to
your political punch, not
punch,
literal
yes.
punch,
Well,
because
no,
then they're going to
yeah.
say stuff.
Now, of course, you know, the proposals that they're bringing are horrendous enough for us to do that, and we should do that.
What's
Yes.
horrendous about the CR? It continues funding the government at Biden
Horrendous
budget
about
levels.
the CR is that it is a cut.
No,
Yes, it is.
No.
If you do not consider the cost of doing business, if you do not consider that the cost of living, for example, has gone up, that everything has
See,
gone
now,
up.
now you're changing. It's not a cut. You're being
It's a
dishonest.
cut.
It's not a cut.
It's a cut.
It's continuing
cut is a
funding the
cut is a
government at the
cut.
same levels. It's not a cut. You voted to shut down the government. You voted to lay off every veteran in the federal government. You're making a passionate plea for why Democrats didn't shut down the government. And now Chuck Schumer can't even have a book tour because Democrats are so enraged that the government was. And I'm just confused because last week I was told that people going and expressing their First Amendment rights was part of their democratic and civic duty. And now Chuck Schumer can't even have a book party with Democrats over it. I'm trying to decide.
I mean, Scott, I
what's
actually
right.
think that Democrats are in agreement with you in the sense that they probably think Chuck Schumer should,
Yes,
to
exactly.
Carrie's point, take the smoke.
2 weeks ago, he was
up at
attacking
the
Show
book
up and
events
take
and
and
take
he should show up and take the L is what I'm saying. No one's saying he can't have it, Scott. He can do whatever he chose to. But once again, another example of him deciding to hide. I would love for him to go on the book tour so that he can answer the questions of the American people. Security risk perhaps may be true, according to what Abby has said and what his office is saying.
Who would be the security risk, though?
I don't know.
Who
All
would
I'm
be the
saying-
security
Wait a
risk?
minute.
The book is about. The book is
Who
about.
who is Who is the risk?
Scott,
Can we just admit who the risk is?
the book is about anti-Semitism, right? So I guess somebody that might be anti-Semitic might target
So, the left.
Chuck Schumer. Tomorrow, he's supposed to be on The View. I think that hasn't changed. He'll be on the hot seat there. I also think he should go on this book tour because if we are talking about Republicans who don't have the cojones, to quote you, to show up to actually even do town halls, even though there were town halls of constituents all over the country this weekend begging the Republicans to show up and answer questions. They refused to do so. But so I think Chuck Schumer should face the music, should, as harsh as it may be, should answer people and should portray some leadership and confidence, which he has done in the past.
Okay, I think Chuck Schumer was the adult in the room. He did what the American people want. The American people want government. They want people to get deals done. And the fact of the matter is people don't want to punch. The fact of the matter is people are actually excited. NBC News on Meet the Press, they reported their polling found the highest level of enthusiasm and the country going in the right direction since 2004, 20 years. So President Trump is doing exactly what he campaigned on. That's why 76% of people said, according to CBS polling, agreed with his State of the Union speech, which included a lot of independents and a lot of Democrats who were watching that speech.
Carrie.
That is why.
Carrie, my namesake, Carrie.
Yes, my fellow Carrie.
You do know what you're saying is incorrect. I don't care about the polling.
Talk to
The
NBC.
American, I don't care what NBC is saying. I can talk to the people on the streets. Are you on the streets? Are you talking
Absolutely,
to people
I am.
in real life situations who have everyday jobs who are saying they're unhappy? You know very well. well.
Are you saying
the-
CNN polling is
they're
wrong?
saying-
No,
they're saying
no. What
that-
I'm saying is,
that Joe
don't do
Biden
me.
under-
Don't try me today, Scotty.
We
what
put
I'm
out
saying
we
to
put
you
out a
is that
CNN
you
poll. Are
know,
you
by
saying our
and
polling
large,
is wrong?
no. What I'm saying to you is that you know, by and large, people are not happy. This
No,
is
they're
not,
very happy. They're unhappy with Democrats.
You're happy.
They're happy with Trump.
You're happy. Democrats aren't happy.
Let me-
We're not happy with Democrats.
Let me
and the
try
way
to
they're
let me try
handling
to
the
sort this out
situation.
real quick before we have to go to break. Uh, the- American people are not very happy with the direction of the economy. They are not very happy with Democrats. There's a lot of unhappiness to go around.
Correct.
For the time being, Donald Trump's approval rating continues to go in the wrong direction.
This is your final warning. The Gov owes you $5,800, but if you don't claim it, it's gone forever. If you're struggling with bills, gas, or groceries, stop scrolling. They have been quietly